The Biden crime family stealing the election. The media's covering up. The Biden crime family stealing this election. The media's covering it up. The Biden crime family stealing this election. The media's covering up. We want our freedom for the world. Give us our freedom, Joe Biden. Your Biden's covering up this election. He's stealing it.
The video starts ominously enough. An unmarked white van at 2:30 in the morning outside the TCF Center, and a man unloading something into a wagon.
Looks like one of those lockboxes.
The woman recording is Kelly Sorrell, a Texas lawyer and member of Lawyers for Trump. She suggests that what she's recording is someone delivering thousands of ballots in the middle of the night, right around the time Michigan went from Trump to Biden.
So late at night.
Sorrell shared the video with conservative media, and it blew up.
I get in the car and I see him like drop the box. And that was pretty much, we had worked polling stations for the night. And that's, very similar to the box that we had seen and been watching and monitoring.
The video went global. Even President Trump's son Eric tweeted it, leading 40,000 more to retweet it.
You've been following this, and I don't know if you saw, we had this kind of exclusive here of what was going on in Wayne County. We had some of these videos of people just bringing in coolers and red wagons of votes, completely unsecured, with no security checkpoints behind the glass polling station, which they then covered with Bristol boards. They just called the state of Michigan for Biden, at least on CNN.
Yeah, there was someone tweeted there had been reports about large amounts of ballots that sort of appeared, and all were going for Joe Biden and none for Donald Trump. It was like 100,000 plus ballots or something like that. 100% for Biden, none for Trump.
Last night they said we're going to stop counting.
Right,
because
pretty early.
And then I went home.
We all did.
We all went home. Yeah. Then they continued counting. Like, what kind of shift is that? I don't understand it. There's a night shift. There's a morning shift. You can work a double, but just taking an hour off and telling everyone leave and then coming back an hour later, like, oh, by the way, we found 120,000 votes. What do you mean? Oh, sorry, that's an extra zero.
Well, they stopped. Yeah, they stopped counting suspiciously close to the time when Biden said, "Hey guys, we're going to go home."
Now we do have a video of as sort of an explanation of the Sharpie thing in Arizona on the ballots versus pins.
Is this going to be the new hanging Chad moment?
Yeah, I think it will be actually. Hanging Chads of 2020.
All right, let's see the video of the Sharpie.
So explain one more time.
So the people that were in front of me, there were two people in front of me that used the Sharpie.
Yes.
That was given to them by the poll workers.
Yes.
It did not read their ballot.
Okay.
And they slid it in there twice. I used a pen.
Yep.
Took their Sharpie and threw it away.
And it read your ballot.
And it read my ballot.
And it read your ballot.
And it read my
So
ballot.
what they're doing is they're telling people to use the Sharpies. That way, those votes aren't counted.
Yes.
Wow.
That's exactly what's happening.
And this is Arizona?
There was other people that were in there voting with their pens, and they literally went around and they were yanking pens out of their hands.
Yes, they tried to do that to me, and I took their Sharpie and I hid it because then they said, look for all the Sharpies that are not being used and take the Sharpies back. They had a bowl of pens behind them that they were not giving to people and only giving Sharpies out.
There we go.
Wow.
So the ones with the Sharpies are not being read at all.
No,
No. None of those ballots are being read.
not even tried a second time. They just
That's correct.
ran it through and slid it in the front, and I was like, wait a
That's what they did with yours?
Yep, and I just went with a Sharpie, voted Trump, and she just slid it in, and that was it.
Votes aren't being counted.
Camouflage.
That's what's going on.
Oh, I got you.
And then I posted it on my Facebook group chat in my neighborhood.
I don't want to talk to her. That's a hedge.
At the Queen Creek Library.
you?
They did it at ASU Polytech earlier. They're like
Stop it.
between Queen Creek and like the edge of Gilbert.
Yep. And those ones are not being counted.
Yeah.
They're invalid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
like, I have proof.
So they're invalidating votes is what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
That's how
I
it
took a
feels like.
picture of my
Okay.
ballot.
Yeah, and
then
it's
there was a guy that directly came out.
it's not just this video. We've had I've seen multiple people on Twitter, including one of the guys at Outkick.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late.
Pretty amazing how social media have really cracked down on all of this. The reports in the last few minutes. There's a group on Facebook called Stop the Steal. And the basic idea is that you are going to monitor election fraud. There are hundreds of thousands of members, people who are attempting to presumably weigh in to stop election fraud. And apparently this is bad. So Facebook simply shut it down.
They want to find out how many votes they need, and then they seem to be able to find them. They wait, and then they find them. And you see that on election night. We were ahead in vote in North Carolina by a lot, tremendous number of votes. And we're still ahead by a lot, but not as many, because they're finding ballots all of a sudden. Oh, we have some mail-in ballots. It's amazing how those mail-in ballots are so one-sided, too. I know that it's supposed to be to the advantage of the Democrats, but in all cases, they're so one-sided. We were up by nearly 700,000 votes in Pennsylvania. I won Pennsylvania by a lot, and that gets whittled down to, I think they said now we're up by 90,000 votes, and they'll keep coming and coming and coming. They find them all over, and they don't want us to have any observers, although we won a court case. The judge said you have to have observers. Likewise in Georgia, and they're appealing. Actually, they're appealing. We won a case that we want people to watch, and we want observers, and they're actually appealing, which is sort of interesting. I wonder why they'd appeal, that all we want to do is have people watch as they do the vote tabulations. Likewise in Georgia, I won by a lot, with a lead of over getting close to 300,000 votes on election night in Georgia. And by the way, got whittled down, and now it's getting to be to a point where I'll go from winning by a lot to perhaps being even down a little bit. In Georgia, a pipe burst in a faraway location, totally unrelated to the location of what was happening, and they stopped counting for 4 hours, and a lot of things happened. The election apparatus in Georgia is run by Democrats. We also had margins of 300,000 in Michigan. We're way up in Michigan, won the state, and in Wisconsin we did likewise fantastically well, and that got whittled down. In every case they got whittled down. Today we're on track to win Arizona. We only need to carry, I guess, 55% of the remaining vote, 55% margins, and that's a margin that we've significantly exceeded, so we'll see what happens with that, but we're on track to do okay in Arizona. Our goal is to defend the integrity of the election. We'll not allow the corruption to steal such an important election, or any election for that matter. And we can't allow anybody to silence our voters and manufacture results. There's tremendous litigation going on, and this is a case where they're trying to steal an election. They're trying to rig an election, and we can't let that happen. Detroit and Philadelphia, known as two of the most corrupt political places anywhere in our country, easily cannot be responsible for engineering the outcome of a presidential race, a very important presidential race. In Pennsylvania, Democrats have gone to the state Supreme Court to try and ban our election observers, and very strongly. Now, we won the case, but they're going forward. They don't want anybody in there. They don't want anybody watching them as they count the ballots. And I can't imagine why. There's absolutely no legitimate reason why they would not want to have people watching this process, because if it's straight, they should be proud of it. Instead, they're trying, obviously, to commit fraud. There's no question about that. In Philadelphia, observers have been kept far away, very far away, so far that people are using binoculars to try and see, and there's been tremendous problems caused. They put paper on all of the windows so you can't see in, and the people that are banned are very unhappy and become somewhat violent.
First of all, this is not a case where there seems to be episodic evidence of irregularity or cheating, but rather systematic cheating. And I recognize that coronavirus created the opportunity, but that doesn't make any more of an excuse. The systematic cheating is operated kind of in 3 steps. First, flood the country with mail-in ballots. Just send them out there by the truckload, so to speak. Number 2, I noticed that in Democratic-controlled administrative areas, there's a kind of blockade. There has been an attempt to shut out close Republican observation of these ballots. And this prevents any kind of reliable checking to make sure that ballots are legal and that fraudulent ballots don't make their way through. We know that in cases where we're talking about dubious ballots with signatures that don't match and so on, the Democrats have literally fought for the right for those ballots to count, even though they may not be the signature, or at least a similar signature, to the guy who is supposed to be casting the ballot. And number three, a declaration that there is no evidence of voter fraud, even though the system is set up in such a way that such evidence would be prevented from coming to light. In other words, the fraudulent ballots get lumped in with the good ballots, and it becomes very difficult then to separate them out unless you go through the whole process one by one. The Democrats here are operating pretty much in the same vein as they do on the issue of illegal aliens. Notice that even there, they conflate the difference between a legal immigrant and an illegal immigrant. And then if you criticize illegal immigration, they go, wait a minute, you're against immigrants. And similarly here, they conflate the idea of counting legal votes with counting illegal votes. And then if you raise any protest against the illegal votes, they go, you're against counting the vote. So clearly their notion of counting the vote includes fraudulent and illegal ballots, or so it would seem.
We want an honest election, and we want an honest count, and we want honest people working back there because it's a very important job. So that's the way this country is going to win. That's the way the United States will win. And we think we will win the election very easily. We think there's going to be a lot of litigation because we have so much evidence, so much proof, and it's going to end up perhaps at the highest court in the land. We'll see. But we think there'll be a lot of litigation because we can't have an election stolen like this. And I tell you, I have been talking about this for many months with all of you, and I've said very strongly that mail-in ballots are going to end up being a disaster. Small elections were a disaster. Small, very easy-to-handle elections were disastrous. This is a large-scale version, and it's getting worse and worse every day. We're hearing stories that are horror stories, absolute horror stories. And we can't let that happen to the United States of America. It's not a question of who wins, Republican, Democrat, Joe, myself. We can't let that happen to our country. We can't be disgraced by having something like this happen. So it will be hopefully cleared up, maybe soon, I hope soon, but it'll probably go through a process, a legal process. And as you know, I've claimed certain states, and he's claiming states, and we can both claim the states, but ultimately I have a feeling judges are going to have to rule. But there's been a lot of shenanigans, and we can't stand for that in our country.
We also have an overlay of Wisconsin, what happened last night, and where it just sort of flipped, where, you know, you have these two lines, right there, and suddenly the blue just skyrocket up. So I think Trump is right to say, hey, hold on a second, let's just count one more time to see, you know, if those lines don't turn out something that looks slightly more sane.
One other thing, people in the control room, if you can find me Kenosha, there was a moment where Kenosha switched. The actual numbers where Kenosha, the votes were overwhelmingly Trump coming in from Kenosha, and then at one point, I think after we went to bed, all of a sudden Kenosha was Biden, which again, you look at it, you go, first off, why did this all... This is the pattern that you see with the left. Everything has to happen in the dead of night. If you want to say that Donald Trump is trying to erode trust in our institutions, Donald Trump wanted everything to happen in the light of day, and he wanted the counting to take place in front of everybody. And the left said, no. It's going to take a while. We said, what methodology? Well, we can't tell you that. Why? Because you're a stranger. Are we going to start with the videos or the pictures first?
I got videos here.
Okay, so let's go to the videos. This is in Detroit. These are the ballots. But all these ballots for Santa Claus. Oh, yeah, I know that spot.
So these are pretty raw.
Yeah, these are pretty raw. So how long are these videos?
This one's 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Kinda
Okay.
scoots
So let's. Okay.
through.
Okay.
Oh,
Right
here
here.
we
Right
go.
here. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. So okay. So right here for people who are watching. Again, we're just getting this. These are people bringing them in coolers. There's no one around.
That looks like a radio.
That does not look like a bustling ballot counting operation. That looks
in the
like
dark.
That looks like the kind of place where Hunter Biden would find his next fix.
And one of the things is there's certainly a lot to be happening. Wayne County has a lot of votes, but it's the dead of night. The polls have been closed for hours and hours. Where are these?
And they were supposed to stop counting. That's what they said on air.
Right. And what are they doing at this particular moment that they need these type of containers at this particular time?
Wow. Okay. Let's keep fast forward. What was that voice that I just heard?
There's a white van.
Oh, it's someone
Narrating.
And this little cart thing. See?
Wow.
Just getting something out of there.
There's just one guy. Yeah. And he's not even wearing a tie.
So the person who's going to be logging in, her name is Kelly S., and she's a licensed attorney here in Texas, again, up in the Detroit area, who monitoring with some other groups that are part of the Attorneys for Trump organization. They're monitoring, making sure that things get done correctly.
It's a wagon.
And you're going to see wagons and
That's
other
a wheel-wed wagon.
strange implements. So this is either a horror movie or something worse.
Wow. You wouldn't be able to trust that just because some ballots could fly off the back. That's a guy in a WrestleMania T-shirt with a KB Toys wagon.
Wow. So he's
I was
bringing
joking
these.
about the radio flyer.
No, but yeah, you're
That's
right.
actually
That's
a
a radio flyer.
He got the nice brand.
On brand.
Yeah, the good thing, it's that's name brand.
Good for him.
Wow.
They spent the extra $20.
So think of the different points here where there's no security. There's no security. First off, we have no idea how these things got into the van. There's no one there right now escorting him from the van. There's no one meeting him as he brings it into there. Like you would think that there should be a human conveyor belt of people. It should look like American Gangster when they're all cutting the cocaine naked, so that you're sure they don't have anything in their pockets. And this guy's just walking in. There isn't any kind of official there for hundreds of yards.
Goodness.
He's just bringing in a wagon right there. Kelly, I don't want to get this wrong here. My half-Asian lawyer Bill is here. That was you videotaping this, and I don't want to be redundant, but I don't think this can be stressed enough. This was happening in one of the major areas of Michigan, right in Detroit. We just watched one video where a guy was bringing it in a red wagon, these ballots. Explain to me what you saw and why you brought it to half-Asian Bill's attention and officials. Why is this so concerning?
Well, I actually went up there. All the polls were closed, and I went up there after we had all gotten back to the hotel. I was kind of watching the news and decided I was going to go check on, it's called Kobo. And so I thought I'd go downtown and check out how the absentee ballots were being counted and see if they were still counting, because I had actually heard on the news that they weren't going to be counting anymore.
That's exactly. So we were doing the election stream all night. And keep in mind, into that point, when we were about to go to bed, they said we're going to reconvene. I think they said at 9 a.m. or they said at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, an hour later, there was a huge jump in Michigan for Biden. So yes, we were there last night. People can corroborate it. 8 million people watched. They said no more counting, and that's when you started filming this video, right?
Well, yeah. And so as soon as I heard that, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go down there and just check and make sure that they actually are cutting it off, because I would hate to leave or not be down there checking on things and they be doing something shady. So I went down and I actually got in, and they screened me for COVID. They took my temperature, made sure I had my mask. I kind of roamed around, and I was like, I'm going to go grab some coffee and then come back and park for the night, because they were active. So I left, and as I was walking out the door, I see this white van pull up. And as I stopped for a second, turned on my phone, you saw the video where I kind of like walk around, and I see he's pulling out like an old radio flyer wagon and is like connecting it. And then I get in the car and I see him like drop the box. And that was pretty much, we had worked polling stations for the night. And that's, very similar to the box that we had seen and been watching and monitoring to make sure that it got locked and removed from the polling stations, put in vehicles, and driven to the secure locations.
Right.
So it was just one of those where I was like, that's kind of weird. So I went and grabbed my coffee, came back, and just was sitting and just observing. I tried to go in. I'm not a Michigan resident, so I'm not allowed to actually go and roam around on the floor.
Right.
But I could observe. It was a glass window. I could observe. There was no security at the door. Nobody was checking bags or credentials or, who was coming in, even identification, anything. People were just able to go in. I'm assuming if they were actually counting ballots, they would get something somewhere.
Right.
But just for regular folks, and there were other attorneys in our group that actually got in later and just roamed the floor.
Yeah, one sec. Okay, so that was the first video, and I understand that we have some other videos as well, if I'm not mistaken. Correct there, Quarter Black Carrot?
I do.
So can you tell us what the next video will be? Quarter Black Carrot, give us a description, and then we'll go to our
it looks like we're inside of the area.
Inside of the
Looks like
building.
the inside of the building. Okay, so we're going to watch this here. Stay with us. I just want to make sure that people can see this so we can sort of give people a visual aid. Let's show the inside of the building, this video here. Okay, so this is where they were going inside, and that's where they're supposed to be counting those ballots, I assume. And so, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of your lovely guest here.
Kelly.
Right here, can you turn on the volume on the clip a little bit?
Yeah.
So, Kelly, right here we see them coming in suitcases. Is this the same place at the area where they are now? Is that where you saw them bringing in the red wagon? Because in here it looks like there are quite a few people. That's a ballot counting operation.
Right. So I can't really tell which video clip you're looking at, but so it's basically like a convention center, the building that we're in. So there's where we came in, or where I came in, was kind of up on the upper level, and then you go down, and there's entrances for everyone. And they're dragging luggage, they're dragging bags, they're dragging igloo, like ice chest. They're there doing 5 to 6 hour shifts. And yeah, I mean, they were taking those items in with them into the clear glass windowed room that's to the back. And that's the area I couldn't cross into. So we weren't able, there we go. So that glass area to the back is where they would go through to go in to count the ballots.
Right.
And so this front area is the lobby area, and they would come in from outside and bring those items into that secure area that's in the back where they actually have the ballots.
And that's where they were counting, and this is at that time when we had been told they had stopped counting. They weren't supposed to be counting.
Correct. And the concern was just the security concern. We don't really know what was going on with, or what items they were bringing in, or who was going in, or any of those things. Yeah.
So what is your primary, how does this differ from the normal experience, at where they would count ballots? Do people, right now what we're seeing is people bringing in by themselves with no security, red wagons and Coleman coolers, bringing them behind a glass area where no one has access. How does that differ from how ballot counting should look, or how it usually looks? Because keep in mind, for a lot of people, they've never seen any of this at work.
Well, I would think you could kind of look at how we vote, right? I mean, we go into a polling location. It's very formal. There's a process. We go through. They check your identification. They, validate who you are, verify that you're a person that's eligible to vote, that you're in the right precinct, you're in the right area. So, I would think that if we're going to go through all of those steps to make sure that our voting is protected, that we're doing it properly, you would think that our end result would have the same level of security.
Right.
And we don't see that here. And so the difference is basically they're just letting whoever in with whatever items. They're not verifying any of it. You see the two ladies standing there, but they're not stopping to say, hey, are you even supposed to be here?
Right. And so what would be the risk there of those people walking in with no stop? Here, hold on. We're going to have my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, here come in. What would be the risk of those people right now? They're walking with what appear to be giant, Santa sacks, or they're walking in with pillowcases full of something. We see people walking in with coolers. What, I guess, is your concern? They could be walking in with fake ballots? They could just,
fake ballots, absolutely. I mean, this is a battleground state. We came up here to Michigan to help Trump because this is a state that's under fire. This is one that we needed to be monitoring for fraud.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to monitor for fraud when nobody's checking.
Yeah. There really is nobody checking there. And I don't know if someone would argue, well, they're checking once you're past the glass. I don't know if someone would argue that.
They're not. They go in, they roam around, they sit down. I don't know what all goes on.
And so one of the important things here is, and we can raise a good point, is look, maybe somebody's got some sandwiches, maybe someone's got some drinks, but at the very least we have a very clear appearance of a problem. And given how many concerns we've had, particularly in Democrat-controlled jurisdictions, about election security, you imagine that the most heightened election security concerns we've ever had, highlighted for weeks and weeks, on the day of the election in a battleground state, in one of the largest precincts in that battleground state, you have lax security at a time when the ballots are coming in. Now, again, the ballots, it's not like all of a sudden, a million Biden votes happened right after these igloos went in, but rather the very clear that at the least, we've got a lack of security that raises questions about the election itself, and particularly in this jurisdiction. And at the worst, we have people who are without the ability to vet it, who's in there.
Well, this is also listen, as someone who has spent quite a bit of time in Detroit, you have more security at a racquetball court. It's Detroit. You have someone there guarding something. There is nobody checking at all.
Yeah, they're just walking in.
And at what time was this? Were these videos taken approximately, Kelly?
That was actually ironically, the issue with Wisconsin came in at shift change. All of that, where you see most of that luggage coming in, is at their shift change at 4:35 in the morning.
Wow! Because you know what, we had to end the stream. Was it right about 4 o'clock? Right about 4 o'clock in the morning is when we ended. We wanted to stay here throughout the entire night, and then they said we are going to reconvene later today and count. And then I took an hour nap in a hammock. I'm not exaggerating, and I woke up and Michigan had entirely changed. It happened right at that time.
It happened right in front of my eyes, and all I could think was, "What the heck?" All I saw was all this stuff going in.
Now, what would you say to people who just say, "Well, that's also because all these votes are just Wayne County, and that's heavily liberal"? Would we expect that kind of a turnaround? I mean, there was a huge lead going into, or a big lead at that point by many. What was it? 6 points, Michigan, 8 points at that point before about 4:30 a.m. What would you say to people who would argue that?
So this is actually just kind of an interesting thought, because we thought going into last night,
turn down the clip.
We were doing great in Michigan. We had been working Michigan.
Right.
All of us spent yesterday, all of the attorneys, we spent roaming around, checking precincts, we did Detroit, we did the suburbs, we did all the different areas to see how many people were, at the polling locations. And I will tell you that suburbia, loaded. You could tell. People were packed in there. They were busy all day. You go into inner city Detroit, nobody was in there. So we were like, shoot, we got this. Like, yeah, heck yeah, we did good.
Right.
And then you come into this, and it's like, what the heck? All of these absentee ballots pop up, and we're just, okay.
Well, but couldn't it just be that people voted early, and that's what they're finally bringing in? I mean, that's what people would argue, right? Well, these are just early ballots, and they're counting them now, and that's a liberal county.
Well, okay, so another thing, too, is that when I left this morning, they were looking, or right after I left, they announced that they basically were around 16,000 uncounted absentee ballots.
Right.
That's what they were working on. And then by 10 a.m., it jumped to about 30 to 35,000. There was like about a 10-minute gap between 30 and 35.
Right.
And then the next thing we know, we're up to 120-something thousand.
Absentee ballots. And they were only expecting 16? They were only expecting 16,000?
Yeah, the first thing this morning, that's what they were looking at.
So I have a video that she might want to weigh in on. This is from Matt Finn at Fox News, and this, I believe, is the same place. It's the scene at Detroit's absentee ballot counting center. It's growing more heated, and the people are saying that there are allegations of violations, and they're covering up the windows so that people can't see what they're doing inside.
Okay, so Kelly, you're able to see what we're showing you right now, correct? Okay, go.
I actually lived it already this afternoon. Our attorneys, I've actually been here at the hotel. I've not slept yet. And so we were working on some of this stuff. But some of the other attorneys with the group, they were kicked out. They weren't allowed in. And so they've been down here at the hotel and not able to go anywhere. So
okay, well, let's show this video here that's going on at Fox News. So if you can confirm it, do we have that video here? Let's show it. So this is what they were doing. Why would they put up? What? Is that commonplace? Can someone let me know?
That's a video from the inside.
That's from inside. Again, this is not coming from Kelly. The other videos that we just showed, the wheel-wed wagons and the people going with no security, that was separate. Kelly, that's exclusive to us. This is what they're showing at Fox News. Is that common practice at any polling station to cover it up with Bristol boards?
Wow.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to show that you're transparent and that these are legitimate elections, you should have that open ability to look in and at least observe to make sure that people are following protocols and there's some kind of, process that's being, compliant.
I thought that was the purpose to doing it. I've never been to a polling station where it wasn't all glass.
I mean, I've seen more of the inside of a McDonald's than I've seen of that polling place once they put those boards up.
And then you scalded your crotch with coffee.
It was great.
Well, so it's really funny because I started, as soon as I got back this morning, I tried to start kind of discussing with different people the concerns I had and the things I had witnessed overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And so it got around in just this little group, in this little area. So I'm pretty sure it was probably discussed over there, and that's probably their response was somebody's in there recording, and so let's, lock them out.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we have a lot of people watching right now. So let me ask you this. What do you think, and I know you have to be careful legally, what do you think happened? What do you think was going on? If you have to guess what happened at that was the Devil's Hour 3:33? Is that where something happens all the time? I don't know. I saw it in a horror movie, but 4:30.
Yeah.
What do you think happened? We saw people bringing in wagons and coolers unchecked and then putting up boards to cover up the glass. Do we just think they're saying, hey, we want to keep this secure, we don't want anyone to get shot through the glass? Is it just there were so many votes, they were overburdened? So what do you think happened there in Detroit?
Well, I generally don't think you try to hide something if you're being transparent and honest.
Right.
I mean, that's generally, that's kind of how we see things, right?
Yeah.
If you're upfront and doing the right thing,
right,
then you're happy to have people observe and see that you're doing what you're supposed to do by the people in your community, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the only thing that would lead me to believe is that they are doing something
that is inherently dishonest, and it would seem to coincide with something that was almost nonsensical as far as the number jump. What kind of a challenge, I guess, can there be to this practice? As you're a lawyer and my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, is here. What do we do? How do we fight this?
I'm not jumping in on that because I am not a Michigan attorney, and I'm just going to sit back and see where the administration wants to go, or where the RNC wants to go, or where the GOP here in Michigan wants to go.
Okay, so yes, you've been focused on Michigan. This just happened. We just had a video. We had people who apparently, did you know about this,
No.
Bill? Pollsters were handing out Sharpies and saying, this is how you fill in the ballot with a Sharpie. And there's very clear instruction. It's written when people are talking about filling out a ballot. Do not use a Sharpie because it will likely be impossible to read. And we have people who've been sending us direct messages saying that they actually were given a Sharpie to fill in their ballot, and there were people on video saying that there were Sharpies being used to fill in a ballot. So that is anecdotal, but there are now many, many hundreds of anecdotes in Arizona, specifically Maricopa County, where people were being given Sharpies by volunteers or officials who were involved with the actual polling stations. That happened in Arizona, to the best of our knowledge. Now, how much of a sway is that? I don't know, but again, it seems like it could be pretty significant. Something else that's bizarre to me, I don't know if you saw with Kenosha. Kenosha obviously was going Donald Trump, was at 60-40, and then in a span of 2 hours became an even split. I don't know that I've ever seen that in a suburban Midwestern district. It's not a different county, the same county, and a switch of 15 to 20 points. Yeah. Again, in that little hour where they weren't supposed to be counting anymore.
Right.
With, I think, 5% more of the vote coming in.
Right.
All of a sudden, it flipped.
And everybody went to bed. I just was actually being annoying. I was like, you know what? Funny, it was like Watergate popped through my brain, right? Like, flashlights. I got to go see if there's flashlights, So I just run down there, So I don't know.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, if you can look into the rest of these when you get some time, but get some sleep. Nope. Let's be really clear. Both sides are not fighting over the integrity of the process. Only one is. Yeah. There's only one side. Let's be really clear here. When people say, about trust, restoring trust in our institutions, there's only one side fighting for transparency, and there's only one side right now fighting for integrity of institutions. The other side puts up Bristol boards and banners to make sure that you can't see what they're doing. It's important to note that this is not there's no moral equivalency here. If someone is putting what's the term I'm looking for? Spit hood. I guess spit hood, but you can see through a spit hood. If someone's putting a bag on your head, it's not the same as the guy saying, can you take that bag off my head? They called it Michigan for Biden, which I I don't believe. Hold on a second. My dad is texting me here really quick. Oh, if we want to have Dan Crenshaw, he can come on right now. So if you guys can,
well, let's send him a congrats. Yeah, we should
let's
definitely
send him a congrats. And he couldn't be on earlier this morning, so I do have to read him the riot act a little bit.
Yeah.
But
that victory hangover, I think.
Yeah, but you sent that thing to them so they can have it as a.
I sent it to them, and I got some other ones. I'm sending them right now, so we'll get to that when we
good.
hear after.
But let me know when we have Dan Crenshaw on, and of course we can get that on the social, guys. Obviously, people are like, oh, are you? I know I'm not tweeting right now. There are other people who have access to my Twitter and my Instagram, but I want people to know that Dan Crenshaw is coming on the show, and I want to gaze into the that baby blue. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun because he's coming off of a victory lap, but he could not come on this morning, which surprised me and disappointed me and makes me think that he will not work hard enough for us as Americans.
Wow, good thing you're Canadian. Boom.
No, I was born in Detroit.
Like I said, Canadian.
I don't like it. I don't like any of this. I don't know when we're going to have to just not broadcast anymore because we stopped, and then this morning we all just said, we're all just married to our phones right now. Let's just get on and talk about this. But now I also think that we underestimated how tired. Yeah, but you're always married to sleep.
I mean, so the Trump the Trump campaign conference, they had to move the location. That's why they haven't given the conference yet, because there were angry protesters there, and the Secret Service said it was too dangerous. So they moved the location.
Whereas Biden just showed up at an old drive-in movie theater.
Right.
And no one even so much showed up with a pellet gun.
So right now there are 5 states uncalled. Is that correct? So Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada?
Well, it depends who you ask, because not every...
They still don't have...
On our board, I guess.
They still don't have Alaska.
Yeah, they don't have Alaska.
Yeah, we have Alaska.
Yeah. That's probably pretty safe.
I think that's just an oversight. We have representative. It's close, and I think Trump's probably going to win. But oh my gosh, if it was anywhere near being fair, and if we actually had the town hall being an open town hall, right now, what do we have? We have a town square where half the people aren't even allowed to go in there, and then they hold an election. So let's apply it equally. And you know what? If you believe that people act in their own selfish interests, and you believe that we shouldn't all be yoked to everyone's selfish interests, so we should allow folks to make their best decisions as it relates to their municipality, their family, their state, and then a federal level. And if you believe that if businesses act in their own selfish interests, fine, but they shouldn't get subsidies from the government, and they shouldn't enjoy certain protections, and we shouldn't play favorites, well, guess what? You agree with me, and congratulations, you're a conservative. Remember that next time you vote. I don't know when we will be with you next. Maybe it'll be tomorrow, but for sure next Monday. Good morning, Mug Club. We will see you then. Thank you so much for making these last 24 hours hell. There's no one I'd rather be burning up with.